Let me ask you some questions. Are you someone who is looking for a new anime to watch? Maybe a samurai themed hack and slash with a slight touch of comedy. Maybe you're someone who enjoys slow paced anime instead of the regular ADHD induced fights like Demon Slayer. And maybe you are tired of the same isekai formula being copy pasted every season. Or maybe you're someone who loves finishing an anime with a hole in your heart, like the Chest Hole Club. Well, you have come to the right place, boy. I'm not assuming anyone's gender. Welcome everyone. My name is Marco from Anime Maple Garden, and today we'll be doing two things. We'll be reviewing and then we'll be judging Samurai Champloo. So let's start. How did I stumble, upon Samurai Champloo? So many of you know Samurai Champloo. I think it's a bit, one of the older animes, but very well known. And, last month I was looking for a new anime to watch, and I got kind of bored of the longest names, like reincarnated as a table, level 3200, but nobody knows, and I am without class, etc., etc. It's like these names are really getting out of hand, and these generic, isekais, like it's really not interesting. Sometimes you can find some gems between them, but most of the times they're really mid.
It's awful.
And so I was searching for something to watch, and I decided to go to have a look to my anime list and into my list of completed animes, and I stumbled upon Samurai Champloo, and I was thinking, wow, I mean, I remember this anime like really good. It was really a gem. I believe I was 14 at that time. Let's not talk about that. I remember it really left in me an impression, and really it was really strong. So I decided to give it another chance. If it still rocks, if it's still good. And so yeah, that's that's what I did, and that I think it was like a great decision. And also, since there is a lot of new anime watchers and the anime community is booming, I thought that it could be a nice idea to show the people this gem. And for the OGs, if you know, you know. So yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the synopsis. So the story revolves around three characters: Mugen, Jin, and Fu, and they travel across Japan in search for the samurai smelling of flowers. And Mugen is this, reckless swordsman, cool guy, who violent, who is always has some issues with people. Jin is this calm samurai with morale and this, bushido code and kind of this like cool ronin. And Fu is this dork who is really complimenting the group as a whole. And let me tell you about Fu. I was really catfished in the first episode. I hope I'm not the only one.
So that was a fucking lie.
Yeah, this is kind of the story. It's very simple, easy to follow. I must say that one thing that Samurai Champloo does really, really well is combining the samurais with the hip hop culture, or the hip hop music. I think it's very cool. I think for that time it was really ahead. It was really ahead of its time. And so I think that one thing that really stands out for the anime itself and is Nujabes. I don't know if you heard, but Nujabes is a god. I think his music is great, RIP. But I think his music was something that was really a gem for the anime itself.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect.
And the whole directing, the whole pacing, I think the elements that really made it interesting was, like there was beatboxing, there was, cannabis references, like guns, like a baseball match. So there were a lot of elements that made it very interesting. And I think those are things that really draw you in and make you like really laugh a lot. So the way how it was done and the directing is an absolute masterpiece. And what makes it really special is, Watanabe, who is the director of Samurai Champloo. He also directed Cowboy Bebop. I think that's what he's known for, and I think he delivered like really well with Samurai Champloo as well. You can see some things that are very similar in its directing style to Cowboy Bebop. So sometimes you can find yourself really looking at it and like, oh wow, I think I saw this in Cowboy Bebop. So it's really also like a little bit of nostalgia. And so yeah, I think this his style of directing is very interesting, and I think it was really unique, like really really unique. And so Samurai Champloo really is not really story heavy. It explores the theme of journey. So it focuses mainly on how Mugen, Fu, and Jin are working together, how they learn to coexist, the journey itself. I think the story is very simple. I don't think there is a lot of heavy plot. So it might be, sometimes it's a minus, sometimes it's a plus. It really depends. But yeah, the story is very simple. There is a lot of comedy, there is a lot of fights, there is a lot of cool music. The opening is absolute fire, the ending is absolute fire. The soundtracks for the fights is absolute fire. So it's crazy. So I think the comedy is very good. The music is great. The story might be a little bit lacking, but I think you will see that the story itself is has its advantages. Each character has its own episodes where they basically go into their past and what they experience and stuff. So it really dives a little bit into the characters itself, but the story focuses mainly on the trio together. So it's really like on them as a group, and that's basically most of the episodes. The swordplay is really cool, and you know the fights are awesome. For that time, I would say like some of the fights are cooler than some of the fights the animators or the studios do this day. So the swordplay is absolutely crazy. And so I mentioned Fu previously, being a dork. The interesting part is she has some quirky skills, and sometimes you wouldn't expect it. I think sometimes it's really funny, like for example, the scene where she just randomly she's one of the best dice throwers in Japan, or when she's eating a lot, she can really inflate like Sakamoto, and deflate them, or the beetle fighting, for example, where Mugen was training his own beetle, and so it would win more matches. Fu is really able to find a job anytime. Let's talk a bit about the similarities with Cowboy Bebop. I touched it previously a little bit. The music is awesome, both in Cowboy Bebop and in Samurai Champloo. In Cowboy Bebop, it's more of a jazz. In Samurai Champloo, it's hip hop. So yeah, I think both are cool. You would say hip hop, and you would expect some really popular like hip hop songs, but it's actually the opposite. I think the hip hop really complements some of the unique ways how the anime is made. And also there is also the recurring theme of being broke. I don't know why they still do this. Like both in Cowboy Bebop and both in Samurai Champloo, they are always broke, always struggling to find food, struggling to find money. So this is something that you will see really often in a lot of the episodes. And so each episode also dives into some like life themes. So I would say that each episode is also a moral lesson. So it's kind of like short thoughts. Many times when I finished some of the episode, I was really thinking, what message. I think when I was 14 or 15, when I was watching it the first time, I don't think I really realized all the messages it was trying to convey. But today, I think I'm, understanding it a little bit more. So I think everyone can really find some interesting, thing in the episodes. So, and also both endings are kind of like a reflection and acceptance. So something that is very specific to Watanabe's work, and like both endings may make you think, like really think. And in Samurai Champloo specifically, the theme of journey. And yeah, I mean, I won't spoil anything, so we won't be talking a lot about the ending. And so, if you are an OG watcher, I think Samurai Champloo really shaped us. I would say Samurai Champloo, Cowboy Bebop, and some of the really old anime really shaped me as a teenager. And I'm very grateful that instead of going out to drink and do some crazy stuff, maybe I missed on some of these things during puberty, but I think I was really happy, and I'm glad that I did what I did and how it turned out. So I think Samurai Champloo was one of the things that really shaped me as personality wise. And yeah, so I'm really sad when the new animes that are releasing now, and there are some exceptions, of course, but most of the animes really don't try to convey a message. They don't try to really give an added value to the viewer. They are just focused on making money or just releasing things. It's really sad that they don't stop and really enjoy the whole process and really try to give something. So this is something that really makes me sad when I think about it, that a lot of the animes I watched back in the day were really strong and it has always a strong message, and the new ones are just they are just copy pasting it over and over and over, and I think people are getting really sick of some of those.
Stop crying. It won't do any good. And anyway, you have a lot of work to do, starting right now.
But of course, there are some gems. There are some animes that really do it well, like Frieren, for example. I think Frieren is a great example, and that's why it's very popular, because it's basically using today's graphics and today's story, and it's trying to convey and move you and give you a message. And again, I think that's one of the reasons why it had like a huge success. Let's start the judging. So let's talk about the pros and cons. So the pros are the music, which is absolute fire. So the music is great. Nujabes is really carrying the whole anime on his back. And even 20 years later, I think it's still great. So the music is great. The characters are very interesting. I think the contrast of Mugen and Jin, Mugen is this reckless guy and Jin is kind of this calm guy, is really working really well. If you appreciate unique art and storytelling, if you love character-driven stories over heavy plots, or if you like Cowboy Bebop's vibe, it really has it. Now, there are also some cons. I think the story is a bit lacking. The story is very simple. I think the pacing is a bit slow. It takes its time, and there is not a lot going on. There is really a lot of dialogues, a lot of characters. So keep this in mind. If you really want deep lore or complex world building, I think that's also something that this is lacking in the story. So compared to some of the other animes, like for example, Mushoku Tensei or Reincarnated as a Slime, I think those have insane world building. So this is something that is really lacking, and was not really the goal of the anime itself, but it is still, I believe, a con. And so I would recommend this to people who can take a step back and really enjoy the uniqueness of Samurai Champloo. If they can enjoy really animes with some message and with some philosophy behind, with some really unique elements. I wouldn't really recommend it for people who really like fast-paced anime, fast-paced stories, really deep lore, story building. So me, for example, when I was going back to Samurai Champloo, and previously I watched like some really fast animes, I found myself really struggling a bit to adapt back to this kind of like slow, slow pacing and slow story. But then after a couple of episodes, it got better. But again, if you're someone who enjoys like really fast, fast things happening, I don't think this is something for you. And so the final verdict is, I think Samurai Champloo really passes the judge check. I think it has its own vibe. I think after so many years, it is still one of the best, and there are reasons for it. So I definitely recommend it for new anime watchers, but I also really recommend it for OGs. If you really want to watch a new anime, definitely circle back to Samurai Champloo, because I think it has a lot to offer. I think the story really explores the theme of the journey. I think we all are in during a part of our life in the middle of our journey, and sometimes we really forget about enjoying the journey itself, and we are so focused on the destination and really on the end that we are missing on a lot of things happening during the journey. And I can see it on myself as well. So sometimes I think it's good to slow down, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey itself, because after the journey ends, then there is like this bittersweet feeling, which I think many of you experienced, me included. So thank you for watching. Sorry for this stupid costume, and I hope I will see you in the next one.